Welcome to Nature's Neighbor on AM 1230 KPRL. Nature's Neighbor. We're live and local and all about living sustainably right here on the Central Coast.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Central Coast. I am your host, Melanie Blankenship, sitting in the studio, a very full studio, with our boy Chad Stevens and a special guest, Lowell Zielinski of Precision Ag. We are going to talk a lot of GMO today. Lowell has come into the studio with us today to help with that topic. You know, I threw out a couple weeks ago about a survey and report that was done by the USDA stating that the consumer at the grocery store are more worried about the cost of their groceries versus the genetically modified organisms that are in their products. But that same report came out and said that over 97% of people surveyed did not know what a GMO is. So, to me, that should have been null and void, but the government thinks differently. But we are here to talk about that because Lowell has expertise in them. He's been farming for how long? 30 years?
30 years now, yes.
Awesome. So you got a little bit of experience behind you there, huh, Lowell?
Oh, maybe more than I want.
So we're going to continue this conversation about GMOs, but first I have to do the business part of my radio show and remind everybody about Nature's Touch Nursery and Harvest's community I'm getting tongue twisted. Community dinner this Thursday night. They are free to the community, first come, first serve. They start at 4 o'clock. They continue to 6 o'clock. Please bring a bowl and a spoon. Provide your own utensils so I don't have to wash dishes or pay anybody to wash dishes, and keep our costs down. But also, this Thursday night is our documentary night. This is the night that we are going to share Watershed, the documentary that is about running water, how to be smart about conservation of our water. It's a really, really cool documentary, inviting everybody out. They are free to the public. The film guy who does the films for us does request a donation, but nobody will be turned away for lack of funds. So that starts immediately after the community dinner at 6 o'clock, right inside Nature's Touch at 225 South Main Street in beautiful downtown Templeton. And also, a quick reminder that this month's free cooking demonstration is going to be on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday. It is actually tomorrow. We're going to start it a little early, but if you come late, just come anyways, and we will accommodate to your needs. We're going to do a green drink demonstration, as well as use the pulp to make a gluten-free bread, and share some different recipes, and doing a little bit of a citrus glaze with no sugar, and so on and so forth. It's a really fun cooking demonstration right there on the teaching table inside Nature's Touch, and come join us. They're free. So a little bit different this month because of scheduling. There's baby goats being born, plants being transplanted. We are all that are in this ag world in full speed right now. I feel like my head is spinning for the amount of things I have to do in a day right now. And honestly, you guys, I do not like this time change. But now that I got that off my shoulders, let's talk GMOs. This is an ongoing topic in our store, in my life, in politics, obviously, we need to make some clear understandings and clear definitions of what these are, because in every conversation since I've put this out on the radio, I have had a lot of people who are very disconnected from what it is and what it isn't, and so on and so forth. So my good friend Lowell approached us and coming in and offering his expertise and explaining and talking about this and his viewpoints on this. And guys, I know that this is a very political, and there's some completely against, as to I in my own lifestyle, but let's get some clarity. Let's be better as a community in understanding where everybody is coming from with genetically modified organisms. So please be a part. Give us a call, 238-5775, 238-KPRL. We'll be happy to take your questions and your comments and your concerns. So, Mr. Lowell, explain your connection and let's just start talking. What are GMOs?
Well, so what are GMOs? Well, it's a very specific definition that we have for GMOs that most people think about when you talk about GMOs. Realistically, any domesticated crop or animal is genetically modified. But when we refer to GMOs, what people are thinking about is the product of genetic engineering. And that genetic engineering takes the gene, and really it's the gene construct from one organism that cannot normally cross with another organism, and put those two together. They only take one gene out of maybe 20 or 30,000 genes within an organism and move it from a bacteria or something like that into a crop.
Yep. So name some of the popular genetically engineered crops that are on the market today. And let's keep it to, because I know that there's genetically modified organisms that are being used to help oil spills, genetically modified organisms that are in our pharmaceuticals, in our vaccines, and so on and so forth. Because me personally, I am based in food, and I am so avid about having people have the choice to be able to feed themselves if they want to. Let's keep it, I know your spectrum is huge, and so is mine, but let's narrow it down to our community. And how many, and what are the most popular crops that are on the market based in food?
Okay. By far, the big three are maize, or corn, and that corn is primarily used for cattle feed. It's not used for human consumption, although we do have some genetically engineered corn for human consumption. The next is soybeans. Third would be cotton. And fourth would be canola.
Yep. And so you have experience in the cotton world. Let's talk about your experience with the cotton.
Back in 1995, about the year GMOs were first released, I worked for a company called Delta and Pine Land Company in beautiful Scott, Mississippi, and population of about 200. And we had one of the first herbicide tolerant and then BT containing cotton that was ever released in the world.
Can we talk about BT?
Sure.
Because I, as an organic farmer, know that BT is recognized as an organic ingredient that we can use as a spray during certain times of the year, certain temperatures, because it breaks down and there's no residual. That's why we're allowed to use it in organic standards. But BT cotton,
yes,
what is it?
It is a cotton or a corn variety. They also have BT in corn, where they've taken the gene that makes a protein that kills worms in the corn and in the cotton. It interferes with their ability to digest food in just worms. You and I don't have the enzymes that are interfered with this protein. So there's no way it's toxic to us unless we're part worm.
Yep.
But anyway, for the most part, it's very, very safe for people.
So you're saying, but they take the protein from the bacteria, BT, and they genetically insert it into cotton and or corn.
Right.
And then also no soybean. See, they don't BT. They're more Roundup ready for soybean,
yes,
correctly?
Completely.
Okay, so they genetically insert it. So when the corn is growing or the cotton is growing, it automatically produces that bacteria in its corn or its cotton to be able to, when the caterpillar lays or the worm tries to live inside the ear of corn, the worm eats the corn and it dies, correctly?
Yes.
So the pesticide is present at all times.
Yes.
Okay.
And in all parts except the pollen. It hasn't been expressed, and that's what we mean when we say the protein is available for consumption. It hasn't been expressed very well in pollen, but we're doing better in getting pollen expression. And why pollen expression is important is because that's maybe what the worms eat first.
Yes, and I've seen that, but realistically, with this chemical that is present all the time, how long has this been on the market to actually, do you know those answers to be able to truly, I know you say it's safe. Me personally, I'm talking on behalf of Melanie Blankenship right here, not anything other than that. I don't feel comfortable with the fact that it's been on the market a very short time is what I'm understanding. I was hoping, do you know that answer?
About 1996.
So it's been on the market so it's not been very long. So how do we know how safe it is? Because we talked about this before the show. All our chemicals, even organic, can be used improperly. And just because we can use it organically, me personally, I don't use it either. I farm biodynamically personally, so I don't use anything that I would buy over the counter. If I can't make it or figure it out, we don't do it. But at the same time, I am not growing for a big market. I'm not trying to grow to make my product cheaper. I'm not trying to grow to make my product ship further or sit on a shelf longer. I'm not trying to make it look prettier. I'm trying to grow a good, honest, ethical, clean food. So that's why I feel that I could get away with not using anything purchased over the counter. So my choice in the way that I farm or grow, I personally don't want that because that's not what I'm trying to go for. But 90%, obviously, by the report that came out by USDA, if you agree, 90% of this country is more based on keeping their products cheaper, keeping their products to be able to ship further, and keeping their products to sit longer on a grocery store shelf. Do you agree? Yeah?
Yes, I agree. And one of the beautiful things about living where we do is we have the opportunity to grow commodities like this during the season. If you lived in the city of New York or something like that, your ability to have your own little farm is probably fairly minimal.
You just made our property values all go up, huh?
Great. You talked a little bit about the safety, and probably our biggest concern is chronic safety. Is it safe for the long term? Obviously, for acute safety, meaning short term, where you're going to be poisoned by eating it and get sick tomorrow, billions and billions and billions of people have eaten genetically modified foods. Mm-hmm. And there has been some product out of them, soybean oil or something like that. And there to date has been absolutely zero numbers of problems with consuming genetically modified foods in an acute sense. I mean, you don't get sick today. But what about 20 years later or something like that? And I guess we really don't know. There have been a lot of tests where they've done test organisms because you don't really want to test the health on human people. Mm-hmm. Are there any other type of people?
No, just human.
You don't want to do a test on humans if there's some possibility that there's going to be a problem. Hopefully you would discover the problem before it's consumed by people.
Let me get the number out there again. So give us a call, guys. We want to have Lowell answer any questions in regards to GMOs. 238-5775, 238-KPRL. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation, and we're going to talk about genetically altered or patented seeds, because that was another big question that is being asked. We'll be back. When I have a guest in the studio, I start talking and not pay attention. So Lowell and I have a lot of things to talk about. So that's what we're doing in this studio, even off the air. So we were just having a little discussion, and I was throwing out at him some other questions that came to us via email, via phone calls through the week since last week's show. The first one was, how is genetically modified organisms, or GE, corn, and so on, that is being farmed out there in this country, how is it affecting the bees and butterflies? Lowell?
The BT protein is very specific to certain types of worm pests. It doesn't kill all worms. It doesn't kill all butterflies. It kills and actually sometimes I wish they would kill more than it does, but it only kills 3 or 4 specific ones. Okay. The butterflies most people are concerned about are probably the monarch butterflies, and the BT has almost no impact. The BT corn has almost no impact on monarch butterflies. But there is another big issue. One of the other components, and they call them stacked traits, we can put BT and herbicide tolerance together in a corn variety, and Roundup, which you can spray on the corn then, does a really good job controlling milkweed, which is the primary food for monarch butterflies. It's done such a good job of getting rid of all the milkweed that maybe now, and this is just a hypothesis, it's a theory, that there isn't enough milkweed to sustain the levels of monarch butterflies. It has really nothing to do with the BT component of the corn. It's just how well the Roundup, or the herbicide tolerance, is working on controlling the milkweed.
Yeah. So see, again, there's this topic, and when I brought this up, it was only just to see how much people actually knew about it, to be able to even put this report out there that our own government put out. But this is a huge topic. There's so many angles to it. But another big angle that is coming at us to get these questions answered is the patent law. So as Lowell and I both know, all genetically modified organisms, all genetically engineered science or crops or however you want to call it, is all patented, meaning me as a business owner cannot go out and produce or grow a genetically engineered crop without having the permission of the patent holder that owns that patent, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes. And so how do we, as people who want to grow our own food, people that want to live within our own system, how do we protect ourselves, or how do we understand any of this? Can you answer that question?
Well, for small growers, ones who want to grow their own food and stuff like that, there will always is a long time, but there will always be non-genetically engineered crops available, non-genetically engineered seeds available. A good example is corn. Corn, most of the corn we produce throughout the world is hybrids. Mm-hmm. It's a cross between two parents produced the year or 2 years before that. That has been the case for about 50 years. So you have, for the longest time, you have not been able to buy hybrid corn, or you haven't been able to save the hybrid corn seed because it doesn't breed true the next year.
Yeah, and me as a seed collector, a seed grower, I know that there's only honestly about 5 to 7 varieties of open pollinated corn that we can save and carry on, and it's still even when you save your own seed, it doesn't genetically produce exactly the way that its parents does. So we have a phone caller.
We do. Hi, you're on Nature's Neighbor.
Hi. In Pennsylvania, Monsanto sued several, I believe they were wheat growers, because the Roundup Ready wheat that another farmer had blown, I guess the pollen had blown over into their fields, and they were denied being able to sell that wheat that they grew in their fields because it had been contaminated by Monsanto's Roundup Ready wheat.
Yeah, it was actually, and I've been following that really closely too, because as a seed grower and as a seed saver, I'm small scale, but I also deal with a lot of bigger scale guys that are growing some pretty amazing stuff. So yes, I've been watching that too. It was actually corn that had cross-pollinated with a neighbored farm, and it actually produced genetically engineered corn, and the farmer who was not carrying the patent went out and sold it, and for some reason it got tested, which is very rare because most GE corn is not being tested before it really hits the market. So, but for some reason this farmer's corn got tested, and Monsanto's a parent company, is not necessarily directly Monsanto, because if you do your research, you guys realize that Monsanto has got a lot of other names attached to it, and so they sued. There's several farmers actually sued for the rights of the crop, but then took land because the farmer then could not pay for the lawsuit. But to this day, they cannot prove that farmer actually knew that it had cross-pollinated. Now, since then, I have done some research on that, and there's actually farmers in the Midwest that are putting up signs who are growing genetically engineered corn to ward off or warn their neighbors that this could potentially happen. So, as a Nature's Neighbor show and neighbors working together, how scary is this? This is, again, science. Are we too big to fail with our science, Lowell? I say this all the time, but are we getting too big that we're not in a balance right now?
Right.
Then that's,
I think it's easy to make accusations like this, and actually there was an incident with wheat, and it occurred in the state of Washington, but most corn is self-pollinated.
Yes.
You know, corn pollen is, as pollen goes, is very heavy. It doesn't travel very far, maybe a dozen feet, maybe 20 feet from a cornfield. So that if you're a neighbor and you're not growing genetically engineered corn, and you have 50 acres, and all 50 acres miraculously become contaminated all at once, no, that doesn't happen scientifically.
Yeah, and that's not what happened. It was a percentage
Right.
of the crop that did.
And you would hope it was closest to the field.
Yes. All right. So see, in this really quick show, this is a huge topic, and we are going to continue this conversation even into next week due to the amount of people that are calling and coming in after the show is aired. But stay tuned to next week's show. Thank you, everyone, for your support, and have a really, really good week. And follow up with us on Facebook, email, come see us in downtown Templeton. We're here to have this conversation. Take care, everyone.